My administration has taken action to abolish all discriminatory diversity, equity, and inclusion nonsense. And these are policies that were absolute nonsense throughout the government and the private sector. With the recent yet somewhat unexpected great Supreme Court decision just made, America will once again become a merit-based country. You have to hear that word, merit-based country.
Donald Trump took office on January 20th, 2025. Almost immediately, he signed executive orders to terminate DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, initiatives and federal programs, potentially ending decades-old programs and policies meant to address discrimination. But what is DEI and how does it affect us? To understand this, we must first acknowledge that society is a meritocracy. What exactly does this mean? To help us break this down, let's first talk about the history of meritocracy. In the 1950s, the idea of society being a meritocracy, where anyone who worked hard enough and had enough skill could move up the social ladder, was popularized. This was done in efforts to diversify the elite and make the American dream a reality for everyone. However, this competition-based approach did not take into account the systemically disadvantaged and marginalized groups who inherently did not have access to the same resources and quality of education. And as society, particularly the government, has noticed the unfairness of a merit-based society and the historical discrimination of marginalized people, initiatives like DEI have been put in place. Affirmative action was one way to promote inclusivity, specifically on college campuses. It was originally used to make up for historical discrimination until 1978, when the Supreme Court ruled that it was unconstitutional to use quotas to balance the student body. From 1978 up until 2023, when it was banned by the Supreme Court, affirmative action was used to diversify campuses by taking into account inequalities, like differences in education and advising quality, in the college admissions process. Still confused? No worries. Olivia and Sabrina are going to help break this down for us. This is Olivia. She is an excellent student and very involved both in and out of school. Her family is part of the upper middle class. This is Sabrina. She is also an excellent student and is one of the best players on our high school's basketball team. Her family is part of the working class. They are both white, cisgender females beginning the college application process. Their dream school is Marcy Cordy University, a very prestigious college in the heart of the nation, Washington, D.C. They are both students with excellent grades, so if society is a meritocracy, they should both be accepted, right? Let's take a closer look at their backgrounds. Olivia tested into an accelerated program in elementary school. This gave her a leg up in middle school as she was able to start advanced courses earlier. Sabrina's elementary school did not have the funds to offer an accelerated program. However, in an alternate universe where she went to Olivia's school, her score would have been higher than the latter, taking Olivia's place in the program. Fast forward to starting high school, Olivia and Sabrina begin preparing for the SAT. Olivia's family hires an SAT tutor to help Olivia study twice a week. She ends up taking the exam twice, getting a score of 1580 on her second attempt. Nobody in Sabrina's family had ever taken the SAT. While she knows tutoring services exist, her family cannot afford to send her for SAT tutoring. From studying on her own, she gets a score of 1450. Fortunately, both Olivia and Sabrina are admitted to Marcy Cordy. However, there is no denying that one was more systemically disadvantaged than the other. But opportunity and success are not only an individual effort. It is also influenced by the environment and is passed through generations. One way is through the style of upbringing. While it is not true for all middle-class families, it has previously been observed that the style coined by sociologist Annette Leroux, considered cultivation, is a common parenting style. In short, this style is characterized by organized activities meant to cultivate children's talents. It is more popular in middle-class families who have the financial resources to do so. A sense of entitlement emerges from this, where children are taught to see adults as equals. Conversely, a popular parenting style among working-class families is the accomplishment of natural growth. Parents have a less active role in facilitating the skills of their children. Instead, children are taught that there is a boundary between adults and children and have long stretches of independent time. As a result, there is a greater sense of distance and distrust between children and figures of authority that follow them into adulthood. Back to our two students. Olivia's mom is a doctor, and her dad is an executive in a big tech company in Silicon Valley. Her dad started as a computer engineer for the company when it first started, so he worked from home often. As a result, he could take Olivia to school and back every day, drive her to ballet practice, drop her off at tennis practice, and shuttle her to any after-school activity she had. Her involvement as a child has made her more comfortable interacting with her peers and people in authority in the present. On the other hand, when Sabrina was 15, her mom suffered a major work injury. She has been a stay-at-home mom since then. Her dad works a 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. construction job and does ride services on the side. Sabrina had signed up to play basketball in high school because it had the lowest fees for the limited sports that her school offered. While she was one of the best players on her team, she could never afford to attend the out-of-state championships where scouters would recruit players to play for the universities. Her mom used to drive her to practice in the next city over, but after her mom's injury, Sabrina had to bike herself to and from practice. On most nights, after completing her homework, she would visit her neighbors or her relatives nearby. Olivia and Sabrina are now in their last year of university. The summer before her senior year, Olivia interned at her dad's company where she was able to network and score excellent letters of recommendation and referrals from other high-ranking executives. This helped her get into a fall program at Google, shadowing computer engineers. Although she doesn't know it yet, Google is planning to extend a return offer after seeing her work ethic and confidence for post-graduation. Through many cold emails and networking events, Sabrina was able to connect with faculty at her university who informed her of internship and employment opportunities. While the time spent on applications, drafting emails, and attending events took away from time to study, she was able to participate in several unpaid internships throughout her time at Marcy Cordy, albeit it took more effort and many more rejection letters than Olivia. If Sabrina had the means, both financially and physically, she would have been even more involved in high school. If she had the connections, she would have an easier time applying for jobs post-graduation. But she does not have the means or the resources. So even though both she and Olivia have the skills and work ethic, Olivia has the leg up. And so we return back to the big question: what does Trump's anti-DEI stance mean for us? From a meritocracy perspective, it means that only the most competent people get the job, the people with the most talent, skill, and genius, no matter race, sex, or background. However, in the fine print, many gifted people are left out because they are marginalized and don't have access to the resources that would otherwise nurture these skills. Yet, people with the most merit are not always the ones who end up on top. Sometimes it is a game of who you know and how you know them and who is in possession of certain resources. For example, an organization called Moms Across America started as a group of moms concerned about the usage of GMOs and chemicals in food. While they do not have the traditional expertise on the subject, they collectively had the financial resources and influence to test things like school lunches and breast milk. They also have the invaluable resource of being taken seriously by policymakers, meeting with representatives and their teams, including Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who was nominated to lead the Department of Health and Human Services, despite no experience in traditional healthcare. Although their claims largely are not backed by licensed pediatricians, Moms Across America still has influence in this sector. Because of how their platform has grown, instead of necessarily their skill and talent, groups like Moms Across America can make their way up the political ladder. This is also seen in industries like the music industry. This production of culture, where the symbolic elements of culture are reinforced within the system of origin, is exemplified through the rapid popularization of rock music in the 1950s. In an article written by sociologists Richard Peterson and Ann Anand, they discussed how innovations in technology were originally only accessible to major corporations and labels, letting the swing era that was popular at the time flourish. However, when technological advances became accessible to smaller labels, alternative sounds such as rock were able to dominate. If these smaller labels had the resources earlier, the rock genre may have become more popular sooner. Instead, the monopoly that major corporations had over production kept them and their signature swing sound in the mainstream. DEI is being challenged in order to hire competent people. Yet some people in positions of power have platforms that are not built in a meritocratic way. The idea of a merit-based society is still being challenged from within, since other factors like influence and accessibility come into play. As more companies get rid of their DEI hiring practices, it is still the marginalized groups, the ones who are systemically disadvantaged, the ones who historically and presently have access to fewer resources, the ones who are taken less seriously by the people in authority, that are hurt the most. A society structured solely around competition reinforces inequality in college admissions, the job market, and beyond. This is what is at stake. This is what it means for us.